Hi guys, so in this video I'm going to explain 4 key points about summarizing. These are 4 important things that we can notice about summaries that will help us write better summaries ourselves. And when I say summarizing, what I mean here is the act of explaining your own understanding of someone else's ideas, right? So in other words, summarizing is not giving your opinion on other people's ideas. It's not commenting on other people's ideas. It's explaining your understanding of what that person said. If you'd like to see an example of a summary that illustrates the points that I'm making in this video, I encourage you to look at my own sample summary of the introduction of They Say, I Say by Kathy Birkenstein and Gerald Graff. Now, the first key feature that we can notice is that a summary is understandable by someone who has not read the text you're summarizing, right? So if you look at my summary of that introduction, somebody who has not read the introduction of They Say, I Say could read my summary and 100% understand what it is that Gerald Graff and Kathy Birkenstein said in that chapter. Another way that I like to explain this is that when one writes a summary, one should be writing for an ignorant reader. And when I say ignorant, I do not mean stupid. I simply mean imagine that the person reading your summary is someone who has not read the text and perhaps is not familiar with the ideas in the text. Okay, so the second key feature of a summary that I'd like you to be aware of is that a summary should be written in your own words. The ideas in your summary are not your ideas, right? They are the ideas of the author whose text you're summarizing, right? However, the language in your summary is your language, right? You are using your own language to express the ideas of someone else. However, there is an important exception, which is that when you include a quotation, and by quotation I mean a phrase or sentence in quotation marks, the words between the quotation marks are the author's exact words, while anything not in quotation marks is your words. And the way I like to explain to my students what I mean by express someone else's ideas in your own words is this. When you're sitting down to write a summary, I would encourage you to try to write it from memory, right? Put the book down, right? Put it away. Summarize the ideas in the book as you remember them, right? And then if you're unsure about something, right, or want to include a quotation, then you can go back into the book and you could look, okay, on page 43, what was that thing that they said about engaging deeply with other ideas? I want to quote that exactly. Okay, the third key feature of summarizing in English that I'd like you to be aware of is that when you are describing someone else's ideas in your own words, it is important to continually remind the reader that those are not your ideas by using something that I like to call voice markers. Now, this is a lot easier to understand if we're looking at a text. So let's take a look at my sample summary of the introduction to They Say, I Say. You'll notice that again and again throughout these 2 paragraphs, short phrases appear that continually remind the reader that these ideas are not Austin Woerner's ideas, but Kathy Birkenstein and Gerald Graff's ideas, right? So they argue, da, 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 da. The authors point out, da, 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 da. Graff and Birkenstein are careful to explain, da, 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 and so forth. These phrases, which I've highlighted here in yellow, are what I like to call voice markers. And these voice markers are important because if they weren't there, it would be easy for a person reading this summary to get confused and think that these statements are expressing Austin Woerner's ideas and not the ideas of Gerald Graff and Kathy Birkenstein. Okay, there's one other thing that I want you to notice about these voice markers, which is that each of them contains a very special kind of verb. And we call these reporting verbs. You'll see that they are highlighted in red here now. Each of those verbs is a type of verb that is used to express an idea. They argue, they point out, they explain, they claim, they encourage, they believe, right? When you are summarizing, you will need to use verbs like this a lot, right? And so it is important that you master their usage and be able to use them correctly. Okay, the fourth and final key feature that I'd like you to be aware of is that effective summaries present the ideas in the text according to their logic and not necessarily according to the order in which they appeared in the text. So if you look at my sample summary, for example, you will notice that the first paragraph is about Grafenberkenstein's idea that good academic writing is the kind of writing that engages deeply with the ideas of others. The second paragraph is about their idea that it can be useful to structure your writing using templates. Now, if you go back and read this chapter again, you'll notice that this idea does not come first. Actually, this idea comes first, right? And then they express this idea afterwards. But for the purposes of my summary, for expressing my own understanding of their ideas, I felt that it would be better to put this idea first, in part because it seems to me that that is really their central idea, their most important idea. And for that reason, putting it first seemed like a good idea to me. Okay, so those are the four key features that I believe are important to writing an effective summary. A summary should, first, be understandable to someone who has not read the text you're summarizing. Second, it should be written in your own words. Third, it should use voice markers to remind the reader that what they are reading are not your ideas, but someone else's ideas expressed in your own words. And fourth, it should be written according to the logic of the ideas and not necessarily the order in which they were written. Okay, I hope that those four principles will equip you to write a pretty decent summary. However, I want to stress that in your other classes, your professors are not necessarily going to ask you to write a summary, right? They're not necessarily going to ask you to summarize the reading. Instead, they might ask you to write something that requires you to draw on your summarizing skills. And they might not use the word summary or summarize at all. For instance, take a look at this prompt here. How does Durkheim think that society and images of society figures in religion? In other words, according to Durkheim, what is the relationship between religion and society? This professor is not telling you summarize Durkheim. However, she is asking you to explain your own understanding of Durkheim's ideas. And to do this assignment well, you are going to have to write in a way that would be understandable for someone who hasn't read Durkheim. You're going to have to write in your own words. You're going to have to use voice markers, and you're going to have to order the ideas according to their own inherent logic. Okay, I hope that this video has given you a better grasp of how to summarize effectively in English. Thanks for watching.